Morning, everyone. This is Mark Carkenny with ACT-IAC, and I wanted to thank you for joining this special webinar in a series of webinars that we are conducting around the President's Management Agenda. Our presenters today is our 2018 Igniting Innovation overall winner, the HRSA Modern Data Analytics Platform team, and we're very lucky to have them to present for us today. Wanted to also let everyone know that in conjunction with this webinar, the Institute for Innovation is putting on our annual Igniting Innovation Conference and Awards on May the 23rd. And this is a program that's designed around highlighting some of the best government innovations that are out there in both government, industry, and academia. We expect about 500 or so attendees. Our top 40 have been selected, and we have gotten over 200 submissions for this year's program. So it promises to be a very robust and exciting program, and we hope that you can join us. I also wanted to thank ICF and for their participation and assistance in putting on today's webinar. And with that, if I could turn it over to Kyle Tuberson from ICF to introduce our presenters today.
Thanks, Mark. This is Kyle Tuberson from ICF, and as Mark said, thanks for joining today's webinar. We're really excited to have last year's Igniting Innovation Award winner with us today. This is our second webinar in a series focused on the President's Management Agenda, or PMA. If you look at the graphic on your screen, we're pulling up a visual depiction of the President's Management Agenda. We created this visual to depict the three cross-agency priority goals, which include IT modernization, data accountability and transparency, and people, workforce of the future. We also kind of broke it down one level lower than this top-level view to show what are the subparts under each cross-agency priority goal. For example, you see in the upper left-hand corner, we have automation under the workforce goal. So how do we incorporate or bring more automation into elevating our workforce into higher value work? For today's webinar, we're going to focus on data, accountability, and transparency CAT goal, which is in the lower left with an emphasis on decision-making and tools, which are little circles kind of highlight the area of PMA CAT Goal 2 that we're going to focus on. In future webinars, we'll bounce around the visual to ensure that we cover other parts of the PMA. And we'll keep coming back to this visual as a way to kind of outline and create a strategy for these webinars moving forward. We want to cover as much as we possibly can, and there's a lot of parts to the PMA. With that, I'd like to introduce today's speakers. We're excited to have Subhash Kari and Ankit Mittal from REI Systems. You know, both Subhash and Ankit played a pivotal role in the design and development of the Modern Data Analytics Platform, or MDAP. And with that, I'll turn it over to Subhash.
Thanks, Kyle, and thanks to the ACT-IAC for creating a platform for this knowledge sharing and for giving us an opportunity to present today. I have with me here Ankit Mittal as well, who leads off our grants offering, our analytics offering. But I think I want to start by sharing the customer challenges that we're trying to address, describe the impact that this solution has produced for the agency, and then share takeaways that may be of use to you, regardless of which agency you support. So the first challenge is sort of tied to the limitations of the traditional IT-led business model for delivery of analytics within an agency. So we have all seen a scenario where a system is built and then users ask for reports. So what you do is go through the process of identifying the types of questions based on knowledge in a few resources, and then IT builds the reports. But guess what happens when executives want to explore answers to questions? These reports often fail to answer questions beyond the first or second related question. So imagine if you are an executive accountable to get the obligations out of the door in September, is your staff able to give you details to support what is the status of your obligations, and then more importantly, the what and the when behind it? Or every time you ask why, they sort of come back and they say, well, I don't have the data to answer that question. So the goal here is to flip the business model of analytics delivery from IT-led to IT-enabled and business-led. The second problem is sort of the classic problem of having a lot of data but unable to integrate it. While this may be more of a technical challenge, it makes answering questions around risk management very difficult or almost impossible. Because to answer questions related to risk of doing business with an organization or with an individual, you have to integrate data from finance, self-reported applications, and data gathered from other sources, and be able to share such insights across the organization. Increasingly, such insights have sort of remained siloed. Finally, how can we improve effectiveness of programs using data-driven insights? So earlier this year, through a survey conducted by REI Systems, the National Grants Management Association, and the Trachtenberg School of Public Policy and Public Administration at the George Washington University, we found that 43% of those surveyed by us, and we surveyed over 5,000 people, about 500 responded, 43% of those surveyed said that they can't measure program outcomes or do not know the state of progress within their programs. So even if you have strategic plans and goals in an agency, how do you know that you are being effective? So these were the challenges that our customer was facing, very relevant even today, that our team was able to help address. The solution that Ankit will demonstrate shortly was able to make a difference for this agency, and I'm going to share a snapshot of the impact next. So what you see here are the results that HRSA produced and benefited from as a result of taking a step back and sort of really rethinking their approach to business intelligence. What stands out to me the most is the adoption aspect of this capability. Within just a couple of months after we had gone live, 25% of the agency, HRSA is about a 2,000 employee organization, about 25% of the agency had started using the solution. And some of the work that these individuals produced, which obviously we can't show here today, was just outstanding. Another aspect was how the agency's speed in decision-making improved. So if you have a question coming from White House, how quickly can you actually answer that question? So that speed of decision-making sort of really improved. And over time, it also started saving some IT dollars that could be repurposed towards other initiatives in the agency. Last and most importantly, the agency leadership is now able to connect the effort it spends to the outcomes it pursues in ensuring that millions of patients in the country get the care they need through improved access, quality, and lowered costs. Ankit and I have been very fortunate to be part of this journey, and we have identified 4 takeaways to apply in our future work that I also hope should benefit this audience. We sort of call them the 4 A's of analytics. So let's look at the first one. Authoritative. So for users to adopt your analytics solution, it must be trustworthy. You can do this by making data available in a reliable manner and keeping it up to date automatically. For example, your customers may need a list of congressional districts to present mission data by geography. Now you have to find ways to update it periodically, otherwise the consumers of the data or the report that your sort of customers or users produce may actually be questioned, and their analysis may be questioned. So finding ways to integrate data from external sources and keeping it up to date is very critical. Another example, let's say, is tied to workload data. If your agency desires workflow and staffing analysis, you better have very robust transactional systems to help you do the work electronically. So agencies must invest in robust business applications, data collection, governance, harmonization, and sort of upkeep of that. Without it, there is no analytics solution. Moving on, The next A is what we call as accessible. Analytics have to be accessible. And your analytics solution must support users with varying analytic intentions. Analytics is not a privilege that is limited to just a few executives or a few power users. If an agency has 2,000 users, the mindset has to be to make it accessible to every single user. So your solution has to offer flexibility to users in terms of the software they prefer to use. For example, some may want Tableau while others may prefer Excel. So rather than mandating that everyone in the agency must use the same tool, you make your data accessible. Another aspect is about making analysis accessible when users need it the most. For example, you could alert users proactively when they are doing the work, such as, let's say, if I'm reviewing an application and if there is risk with funding that grantee, you could actually alert me right then and there rather than telling me after the fact. So you could do that by embedding analytics within your business applications. One other thing that we realized is that when you open up access to data, it can become very overwhelming for end users. Some may feel like they are sort of being asked to drink from a fire hose. So they are unable to navigate to the data that can answer their questions. So what we can do is you have to invest in job aids that support data discovery based on the skill level and intentions of individuals. The next day of course, starts for Agile, stands for Agile. Your analytics solution must demonstrate results incrementally. At HRSA, across the entire grants lifecycle, we identified about 500 fields that we thought were most frequently used, and we rapidly built a data mart around them and made those fields accessible to end users. We didn't fall into the trap of building like a comprehensive and a perfect model. As long as the quality of data in a selected field was good, our basic idea was to get the intentional choices confirmed and then rapidly deliver these capabilities in the hands of the end users. Once the initial release was successful, we started adding more fields and more data marts in a repeatable manner. Another aspect is related to user engagement. What HRSA did was invested in learning and knowledge sharing initiatives, such as forming a community of practice for Tableau. The idea there was to engage the users, empower them, and then let them learn from each other instead of assuming that all the expertise resides only in the IT organization. And then finally, the last day is about advancement, right? Advance. Your analytics solution must evolve continuously. We find ourselves in an age where the pace of technology change is just mind-boggling. But if you get the foundational pieces right, you can set the customers up for taking advantage of predictive and automation technologies. So our customer is now investing in automatic algorithms for risk-adjusted ranking of health centers using R. In the past, it used to take months. They would engage independent experts to build the model, test it, and then program it in the system. Now, technologies such as Data Robot are able to take data and rank various algorithms for you and help you select the best model in a very short time. Once you have selected the model, you can program it in R and you can deploy it on the platform to shorten the time for ranking the health centers from several weeks to just a few days. Another innovation we have prototyped is finding ways to deliver business metrics to every executive at the agency using what we call as conversational analytics using tools such as Alexa. So imagine an executive walks into the office and does not even have to open up a dashboard. They can just ask Alexa, what is the state of my business, right? Similar to how we ask for what is the weather today. So if you can get, I think, the information in the hands of executives in a very user-friendly manner, it would be pretty exciting. So with this, I will pass it on to my colleague Ankit for showcasing some of her work before taking questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Subhash, for giving an insight into our analytics approach and results of MDAP. Now I will provide an overview of MDAP solution and RAI's analytics framework utilized to build it. We codified MDAP framework at HHS HRSA, helping to answer questions in grants context. Let's discuss a couple of scenarios. First one, HRSA was facing funding reconciliation challenge across various grant processes. Using MDAP, HRSA staff has realized approximately 18 times productivity increase, and this metric is prepared by the staff members themselves. Another challenge was the ability of the teams to monitor, track, and predict the workload, particularly in programs that face seasonal fluctuations. MDAP has capability to monitor, manage, and predict the workload patterns to streamline grant process activities. And there are many such examples that have led to the high usage of our solution. I'll now provide the details of the MDAP solution. This graphic has two parts. The top part depicts the functional aspects of MDAP, and the bottom depicts the technical framework at a 1,000-foot level. MDAP supports data from 50-plus subsystems of HRSA's grants management system and performance reporting system, including structured or even semi-structured data. MDAP platform is agnostic to the source of the data, and it supports external sources, preferably through API imports, and in case of legacy systems, it also supports automatic file imports. Let me give you an example. At HHS, the staff needed payment data, which was only available through payment management system, which is common at HHS level, via automatic file imports. At the same point in time, we also needed geocoded location data, which is available through API calls from another HRSA system. MDAP ingests both types of external sources at the same time. Platform has real-time data transformation services, which are microservice principles based. And this service is a key capability that provides high reusability of this platform to any other agencies. As a recent advancement, we have now started to take advantage of having high integrity data at centralized location to build a repository of advanced analytical models, which are used to predict outcomes of the grant programs and predict future workload of a team. MDAP supports a wide variety of capabilities that can span across an agency, meet varying business needs, intuitive actionable dashboards, strategic scorecards, embedded analytics, and robust yet nimble self-service analytics, along with the predictive portion as well. So we have categorized these capabilities by their use cases into enterprise BI, team BI, and personal BI, which we will be discussing in the upcoming slides. ARIA's experience of analytics projects, agencies must advance along all the dimensions which are shown in this framework. The data itself needs to be structured for multiple user skill levels and permission levels. Quality is always a critical aspect, as it's the key to building the trust between the users and the data systems. And this is the key to which drives adoption eventually. Tool sets. The right tools are necessary for storage, management, visualization, and even prediction problems. And when done right, these enable effective collaboration and culture adoption at the agency level. And I would say one of the key aspects is organizational change management, which in done it's right in the form of trainings, roadshows, demonstrations, and even advanced support is needed to increase the awareness of the analytics framework and even as MDAP as a platform within the agency. Last but not the least, governance. This is the key aspect really when we get into the self-service world, because in a lot of agencies when they give access to all the staff members, you may see over a period of years multiple reports get generated which providing the same data. That's why applying governance principles from the day one keeps the entire project intact and also move at the right pace. Finally, all the dimensions together help create a mindset shift and influence the data-driven culture of the agency. This graphic illustrates the choices every federal manager needs to make while choosing the type of capability before initiating any project. Example, agility and flexibility is high on the personal BI. However, the questions like accessibility, access control, security, those are always high on the enterprise BI spectrum. So let me take an example, like workload monitoring dashboards that Subhash covered. Those dashboards require real-time data, needs to cater to the agency-wide audience at different levels, also provide high security of the data as my workload is not viewed to anybody else. Hence, such a dashboard need to be developed in the enterprise BI category. However, some cases analysts need to answer only one-time query for their executives or even one-time queries within the team members. Those kind of situations, those kind of tasks and projects should utilize the tools and mechanisms available for personal BI. Here is the domain-based organization. In MDAP, the data architecture organizes 3,000 plus fields from different phases of grants lifecycle using business domains. And as you can see, it's a cube graphic showing multiple perspectives to the same data. Grants lifecycle show a typical list of grant phases from planning, application, review, etc., which is common to most grant-making agencies. Organization structure of an agency or a bureau shows multiple offices or divisions that are involved. The domain-based approach provides best of both the worlds to the government by merging both lifecycle and organization structure perspectives together. The typical question of what should be included in the first release of such project becomes super simple with this approach. As an example, within HRSA, the MDAP's implementation, government picked workload domain. And this domain included data from all grants phases like planning, selection of the awards, post-awards, all the areas. The workload domain was completed with less than 40 data elements, and it included the workload data for the entire agency. Hence, the domain-based approach proves most valuable and requires least amount of effort as well. Key roles. Implementation of analytics solution includes two major aspects. First is the framework. The second is the user base of the agency. The key question is, how can one solution cater towards the varying business needs and different user sophistication levels? Our solution supports staff members of an agency along with the managers and executive members as well as analysts or developers. All the roles have different interactions with the analytics solution. Staff can access direct dashboards and reports. Analysts utilize self-service capability to generate insights for their team or supervisors, while developers help in integrating data from multiple systems together to enhance the reporting models on a continuous basis. MDAP's vision from HRSA's perspective is continually to improve MDAP by adding capabilities that help business users streamline their day-to-day work. For example, integrating machine learning capabilities as examples were provided by Subhash earlier, along with the natural language processing where we are able to utilize Alexa of the world to actually reduce the navigational time, reduce the time that a user have to interact with the system. And overall, HRSA is looking to increase the data literacy among its staff because eventually the adoption of such frameworks really depended on the staff and their capability and their passion. Now we'll move towards the demonstration. And in order to ensure all the key information of the government system is masked, we have used the test environment and also tried to mask the information upfront as it's not shared on the webinar throughout.
Today, our first demonstration focuses towards the enterprise BI, where an agency-wide dashboard mash up the data from 50 plus subsystems, generate actionable insights, and provide accessible views to HRSA staff within their own grants and performance management system. A user log into HRSA EHB system and navigate to the Dashboards tab. This page provides a list of all enterprise-wide dashboards to the users. User selects the workload dashboard and Tableau-powered dashboard becomes visible on the same page within HRSA EHBs. The homepage of this dashboard allows users to choose their preferred view and mark it as a favorite. Today, I am interested in viewing the workload of my team, so I navigate towards the supervisory view of this dashboard. This dashboard utilizes simple yet effective visuals to communicate various key factors of workload management. Number of tasks in progress and not started. How are the tasks spread across different process areas and roles? How is the progress of tasks based on the number of days it is open? And the important aspect, just with 2 clicks, I can identify the team member names who has important grand closeout tasks since more than 60 days. There are various other scenarios a supervisor can use this dashboard and easily drill down to details and even invoke assignment changes from the original system. The innovative embedded analytics approach provides fully Section 508 compliant accessible views to the government just by clicking on one link at the top of the page. HRSA's MDAP is the first agency-wide implementation of Tableau where 100% accessible views are generated automatically for the end users. The alternative view is screen reader friendly and allow users with special needs to understand the aggregated data and enable them to make data-driven decisions. The innovative embedded analytics approach has helped increasing the adoption of MDAP up to 50% of HRSA's key business users. The general industry-wide adoption of the BI system remains around 20 to 25% among the government systems. The adoption stats itself speaks volume about the success of such innovative solution. These workload dashboards have multiple views, such as my workload view and my grantee view. They support scenarios where individual users can view their workload on daily basis and make their scheduled commitments by viewing the holistic picture. On the other hand, my grantee view allows me to track all the tasks for my grantees and allow me to send reminders for important submissions. Such mechanisms allow HRSA users to remain on top of their workload on day-to-day basis. Our second demonstration is about real-time data analytics, which includes microservices-based data collection, streaming, transformation, and visualization architecture. The reusable microservices architecture provides more than $1 million savings annually to HRSA. The overall HRSA EHB system is being modernized using the microservices-based architecture, where core services are reused across all the major functionalities of the system. This architecture was recently extended by building generic data collection, data streaming, data processing, and modern BI services that provides real-time data analytics capability to the end users. In this demonstration, we will walk through a performance management system that captures more than 500,000 data points from the health centers and aggregate more than 20 million data points at the runtime. A user log into HRSA EHB's external site and navigate to the homepage of the system. This intuitive homepage provides easy access to the various tasks, and grantees can navigate to their performance report easily. The user now opens a specific form of their performance report and can easily perform a task of updating or entering new data. Please note the line number 38 is entered as 0, and we'll update this number, which will result in updating the dashboards in near real time. This dashboard aggregates data across all the data points and show the measure values at multiple levels like national, state, region, county, health center, etc. Currently, we see the total patients value for 2017 as 27,190,900. This number will get updated in near real time once the data is changed in the performance report. And now the user updates the line number 38's value from 0 to 100 within their performance management system. And this action results into a message within a streaming engine which processed by the data processing microservice and saves the transformed result into the data repository. And within a few minutes, dashboards is refreshed with the latest data, and the total patients number is now at 27,191,000. HRSA's MDAP platform follows all 6 core principles of the analytics framework as discussed earlier. It scales easily to meet ever-growing needs for analytics at an agency, ranging from enterprise to team BI to personal BI. Our third demonstration focuses towards the personal BI, where multiple innovative approaches have been applied to improve the user adoption of self-service capabilities, namely actionable data dictionary, intuitive data models, and self-service BI governance strategy. The visual data dictionary for EHB's data mart is strikingly different than traditional Excel or PDF-driven dictionaries. This dictionary provides intuitive visual search to quickly identify the desired data element among 3,000 plus fields repository. The dictionary provides the field name, its definition along with an example, and relevant source information. Another important feature is that this dictionary provides live updates to the system for any newly added field or any updated field. Once user identifies the key field he or she is looking for, he can easily click on the Create Workbook link on the right-hand side of the dashboard. This action opens a web-based canvas of Tableau where self-service reports can be generated by the analyst. This canvas shows the list of dimensions and measures on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, it allows users to drag and drop while building the report. Let's take an example of the count of 2016 awards by state. Such report simply requires 3 data elements to be dragged from the left-hand side onto the main canvas. So for the first element, I took awards release date from the dimensions and dragged it onto the columns, where it automatically aggregated the years into 2015, 16, 17, and 18. As a second step, I dragged the recipient state onto the rows, which actually gave me the 50 different states listed. And then as the last action, I dragged the award count on the data pane, where I performed an action to give me count distinct for each and every award. And that results into a simple report where a tabular format of states listed by the year where the number of awards are displayed. As the next step, I'll format this tabular report into a visual map. So I'll click on Show Me button on the top right corner and simply choose the map. And what Tableau does, it converts the tabular report into a visual map. The Intuitive Data Dictionary has helped users in developing various team-level dashboards. We plan to show just a couple samples. However, there are more than 20 such team-level dashboards developed without any IT contract or project, resulting into cost savings for the government. Most of the analysts are able to create simple and effective dashboards like the one you see right now. However, there are a few champions of MDAP who have created a piece of art by using highly integrated data repository, the visual aids, and Tableau. Another visual tool available for the analyst is a suite of intuitive data model diagrams. Such models easily allow analysts, irrespective of their experience, to traverse through multiple schemas easily and prepare an efficient join. For example, when user is trying to build a report which has grantee data, awards data, Now they are trying to figure out how do I get the number of site visits conducted on the specific grantee. This is a complex question. However, if you look at this diagram, clearly shows where is the grant schema, the award schema, and site visits, and how to actually link it. And this is where the users find it highly intuitive that among any of these views, they have an ID grant. And by simply using that ID grant, they can easily go into the site visit schema and fetch any other data without having to worry about it. Self-service BI is a capability which requires a huge effort and passion to get adoption. But once the adoption increases, such capabilities become the key area of focus for enterprise-level governance strategies. HRSA has planned and executed a self-service BI governance strategy from the very beginning, as they do not reach a status where every person has his or her own report to gather the same answers. Let's walk through a scenario of a self-service BI governance. You will see in the diagram, administrators control all the key areas regarding security, roles, version control, data, sources, and others at the enterprise and the bureau level. However, they empower analysts or power users to read the data from any and every shared resource, and also they are allowed to publish their own resources of data at the bureau or office or at a team level. Whenever an analyst wants to create and deploy something as part of the personal BI, they can simply do that at any point in time, as shown on the point 7. However, whenever they are required to contribute towards a team-level BI, they have to go through an approval process. The approval process is simple and yet effective. It takes maximum 2 to 3 days, and the analyst report can be easily shared to the targeted team or a bureau or the office.
So we are now at the end of our demonstration section and moves into the Q&A. So if the participants have any questions, you can ask us through our Q&A chat, which is available in the platform of the webinar.
Yes, thanks, Ankit. This is Kyle as well. And so for the audience members, we welcome questions in the Q&A. But maybe to get things started, I can ask a question or two as a follow-up to the great presentation you just gave on the platform. Can you talk a little bit about, under PMA Cap Goal 2, there's a lot of focus on reskilling of the workforce to embrace some of these new data tools and approaches to, leveraging data as an asset. Can you talk a little bit about kind of user adoption and how did you get the workforce to embrace some of these new approaches and tools?
Sure, Kyle. So for us, the user adoption was always a top priority right from our first release itself, and it was primarily by HRSA executives were made very clear. So it was multi-pronged approach. Example, there were the initial, once it went out live, there were full day trainings, ideally set up for different user groups. Like there were full day trainings for executives and managers. There were full day trainings for analysts available by Tableau and by the experts themselves. The second aspect was that all the intuitive aids that you have seen, again, there are just few that we showed today, but they were always being shared in a very regular fashion, and they are also connected within the system. So users don't have to open an email or open a Word doc or a PDF. They can simply go to their own dashboards and find the dictionaries and the visual aids, also the help videos that are available. The third aspect we had, which I think has given the most amount of gain, was the advanced support, which is ideally one of their team members were coined as the champions of this self-service capability, ideally. And once that champion is identified, then around him or her, we have seen a huge group set up through the community of practice, and there is a rigor comes up pretty quickly over the period of time, over the period of few weeks itself. So that, I would say, has given the most amount of positive adoption among the users, because once you have champions of their own team members taking the control, even one of them takes it, it's always a group then within few weeks stand up and start learning the tool pretty actively. So yeah, all these areas.
Yeah, and I think if I may add just one more thing, I think is that, Sankit sort of talked about more about like once the capability is ready, how can you have people sort of use it effectively? But I think, what we have seen a shift at HRSA is also like taking a step back and sort of asking the question that, what are the kinds of skill sets that we want within new employees as they are hiring them? So I think, sort of taking a step back and looking at sort of your, workforce plans, your performance development plans, and making sure that, employees are being, supported to actually invest in, analysis, analytical skill building is sort of like a very critical element. And sort of what we are seeing is that, as sort of the younger generation is coming into the workforce and sort of they are getting promoted, and as they are getting into these positions of influence, it is almost sort of like becoming table stakes that, okay, hey, you should know basically how to use Excel, for example, and be able to do analysis. So we are sort of also seeing that shift. And like, kudos to HRSA for, like, I gave the example earlier about the communities of practice, but those are the kinds of things that we need to invest in to help basically, people adopt and become capable of actually using some of these solutions.
Terrific. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So we have a question from the audience around governance, and I think it also touches around, data quality. So could you talk a little bit about kind of the governance that you put in place to manage all the data coming in and the stewardship of data?
Sure. So governance is a piece in our experience as always two parts. One is, of course, the policies and the process that we set up. But then secondly, it's also have to have a person literally dedicated on the government side who's championing that aspect. So luckily, we had the IT office at HRSA doing that activity for us. And from governance, key aspects of governance, going into little details, would be that how the data is integrated from separate systems. And that aspect was very much driven in entire HRSA's EHP system, because we have microservices idly available. So there were very few instances where we had to worry about of master data managing, or there are multiple sources which is keeping the same kinds of data. We have that structure built in where we are able to pull the data from the right source and at the same frequency, and then keep it authoritatively at a common location is what it's called as the data mart for EHPs. So that was the data aspect. And then if there are any other changes, there is always a policy set up and a governance process board, which is a pretty quick process. 2 to 3 days, they are able to give authorization of making certain changes or not. Yeah.
I think if I can add like a couple more points to it. So one, I think, is that, the key ingredient basically for making sure that you have quality data is to sort of take a proactive approach and ask the question that, are your source systems providing you quality data? I think, like 10, 15 years ago, I think, there was sort of this mindset in the BI world where, hey, source systems you can't really control, so let's just go and sort of like, fix it in the ETL process and address all the quality issues and sort of harmonize the data. And I would encourage, I think, agency leaders and other sort of, program managers to sort of, when they are modernizing their systems now, they should sort of really bake in the quality aspects into sort of their transaction systems. Sort of that is like a very critical element from my perspective, and you have to fix it basically at source to be able to reap the benefits sort of down, in the downstream aspects.
Yep. Just to add one more, we do have the automation testing activities in place from the data aspect and also from the UI aspect. There are different tools, different setup pipelines which actually gets executed on daily basis. But again, to me, what Subhash said is still the key of the entire area, that you have to sort the problem at the source first.
Great, thank you. Then there was a question online about, will this be recorded? And yes, we're recording this and we'll make it available to folks. just another one around like tying it to CAP Goal 3 around workforce and reskilling and redeploying. Can you cite any examples of where you've maybe been able to redeploy workforce to higher value work because of this platform?
Kyle, are you referring to the reusability aspect?
Or are there things that the workforce had to do more manually in the past that they can now do more efficiently because of the platform to redeploy them to higher value work?
Sure. I can specify an example itself. I think I talked in the start of my presentation, the 18 times productivity. Just to give a little more insight, it was regarding a project for award tracker is what we called it, or the HRSA calls it. It's what it does. It brings all the data right from the planning phase, application phase, what are the reviews being conducted at an application, then what kind of funding is being given, and what stages they are. It's into one platform and one dashboard. Earlier, there were huge Excels which were maintained by end users on their own by extracting the data from the system itself. And when they described it to us, it was approximately 5 separate reports which they have to export into Excel and then massage the data, build the views which they wanted to build in Excel itself. And it used to take them, even one-time activity, it used to take them more than 40 hours, any one resource to do it. And the entire year, because there are so many awards being rolled out, they have to redo that manual activity like more than 100 times across every season. So from that mathematics perspective, once we build all of it into a one-stop dashboard, to them, they just now have to come to the dashboard, click on it once, and see what statuses they are looking at. So so it has reaped a lot of benefits, and from the aspects where the manual work earlier was being done day in, day out, is now something which is really not required. And they can use that, of course, that time to make decisions or even ask more analytical or challenging questions to the data.
Okay, great. Thank you. A couple more questions from the audience. We have one around back on governance, like some of the tools that you use to support the governance, and were there cost products used to put the governance program in place?
For data governance process perspective, no. We have not used the COTS product. And the diagram that we had showed was more about the self-service BI process. So it was more about the processes that are set up, more about the checks and balances that we have, that the users have access to certain areas and not have access to other areas, and how do they promote that code from one place to another. So it's more about those aspects instead of a COTS product for the governance aspect.
And I think there are a couple of different flavors to, I think, this sort of question, right? So one is from an end user perspective, I think, right, the data that we are actually making accessible, how are we sort of controlling what data is being sort of presented to end users. So for that, we actually relied on using Tableau itself, right? So we are storing all the fields within just like a relational database, and then using Tableau to actually visualize it, right? So if you think about it, we actually built a report and a dashboard of all the metadata that we had stored within it, and sort of expose that for both IT as well as end users, and use that basically for having conversations. So that is sort of is the one aspect of it. And then second element, I think which is more sort of technical in nature, is about like how are you able to share data amongst the different microservices. So again, I think there we are using some capabilities from SQL Server to sort of manage the rules about how data gets shared. But I think that's probably more technical. I'll probably need a whiteboard to sort of talk about it. But I think the key message I would like to convey is that it's really not about like a tool or like a product. It's more, I think, about the discipline, the stewardship, the mindset that I think that the people who are involved in this project that ensure that this thing is sustainable. So there is sort of no silver bullet, in terms of purchasing a tool and thinking like your data management or governance issues will be addressed. It is like a journey, and everyone has to sort of commit to it.
Great, thank you. Maybe one last question from the audience. So we have, can you some around explaining a little bit more around the self-service data dictionary, kind of, I think in the example where you were, the workforce could go in and create their own reports. What was the big benefit, and why was it used?
Sure. So the first big aspect of the benefit portion was that for users among the 3,000 data elements and more to figure out which view to actually pick and develop his or her report is always a challenging aspect. There are some champions who really know these things, obviously based on the naming conventions and all, but there are some new users who are coming and doing it first time, or maybe it's not their sweet spot, so they really have to learn and figure things out. So that piece is where it really supported a lot, because they simply have to come to that data dictionary. And again, I'll add another word, it's a live data dictionary. It's not something which we change once in a year. It is something reads from the repository on the live basis. So if there is any change occur on the data, it actually shows it to the end user itself. So yeah, so for an analyst to develop a report on awards or amounts or planning or reviews, any aspect, the person can simply come and provide the search, like, hey, what field they are looking for, and they try to read the definitions and all. And from there itself, they can invoke a web authoring based report, right? Because everybody do not have to have desktop installed. It's a license cost to it, and also, again, it's more complex tool to learn, right? So from the adoption and also how to manage the entire process at the agency level, both places it was helping end users to identify the field which they need to, and then develop the report on the web itself and save it for their own purposes if they need to.
And I think one other thing I would add, I think in terms of sort of the benefit, right? So again, Ankit mentioned there are 3,000 fields. So just I think, trying to sort of finding like which field you want, that sort of is one benefit. But the second aspect, I think, we need to all understand that, as human beings, as people are playing different roles, you also have a different way of interpreting the same field, right? So for example, if you look at a start date, and someone's, okay, I would like to build a report by start date. Well, you have to ask the question, are you talking about, the project period start date? Are you talking about the budget period start date? So one of the benefits, I think, of putting all of these metadata into the database and using visualizations is, I think, it is allowing us to actually now take advantage of Tableau's intent-based, searches, right? So we can actually, help a user find what they're looking for very quickly. And sometimes actually, a user, who is not very familiar may not know the exact term, but we are able to actually, predict a little bit of what intent they have and sort of offer them some ideas or suggestions. So that is again like a big benefit, right? So the idea is to, educate people, basically, users sort of on the fly as much as possible. Just like as we have been, sort of gotten used to while using like, Google and some of these, the tools. So we are sort of very excited that, those possibilities now are available at HRSA, because all of the data, the data dictionary actually exists within the database.
Great, thank you. Well, this has been terrific. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this, and for the audience, as I mentioned earlier, this is our second webinar in a series, and so we have some exciting webinars teed up down the pike here, and so look forward to connecting with all of you again. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Mark to kind of close us out here.
Yeah, and Ankit and Subhash, thank you so much for presenting today, and thank you all for your attendance. And I just wanted to say again, to reiterate, this webinar will be available on the ACT-IAC YouTube channel, as well as on the Institute for Innovation webpage. We'll try to get that up in the next couple of days so that if anyone's missed a piece, you can go back and re-review this. I also wanted to ask for your feedback. So if there's anything that you'd like us to talk about, or any topics, anything of that nature, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is all on the ACT-IAC website. And if you're interested in presenting as well, we'd love to hear from you. And we'd love to have a conversation about anything that you're willing to talk about. With that, thank you all for joining today, and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.